What if caring for others wasn't another thing to fit into our schedules, but simply the way we lived our lives? Our guest today has spent years helping shape that kind of culture right here in Winnipeg. Pastor Rob Borgerson leads the Winnipeg Church of Christ alongside his wife, Kaydi-Ann. Together, they've built a church family that reflects the beauty of diversity, people from all walks of life coming together to serve, love, and grow in faith. In our conversation today, Rob shares how small, faithful yeses turned into a culture of care that's now woven into the DNA of their church. We'll talk about what it really takes to build that kind of community, how to lead with humility, and why saying yes, even when it's uncomfortable, can open the door for God to do something new. It's an honest, encouraging look at what happens when love becomes a lifestyle.
Every one of us has a story about someone who showed up when it mattered most. I'm Johan, and this is Neighbourly, a podcast about the ordinary ways people show extraordinary care. Every other week, Shannon Steves sits down with someone who's lived that out. Real stories of faith, kindness, and community in action. So grab your coffee and let's join Shannon at the table.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Pastor Rob. I should have asked this from the beginning. Do you prefer Rob or Robert? I've seen both.
Yeah, Rob's great. And you are one of the few that refers to me as Pastor Rob.
Well, I try. It's really important to me. You are a pastor. You have taken on a burden and just a mantle for a group of people in a city. And so I believe that. Well, I'm so excited to be chatting with you today. I know we have connected here and there over the last little while. The title of this podcast is Neighbourly. So I'd love to hear, growing up, who was a neighbor that you will never forget?
Honestly, as I looked at my childhood and all the homes I was at, there wasn't a whole lot that came to mind. But when I was a young adult in school, that totally jumped to mind. So my birthday is in November. And so I was 17 starting at the university. And my first week on campus, that's where I got invited out to church. I was total atheist, zero background with the Bible. But these campus brothers who were getting to know me, they treated me in a way that I totally did not expect. They're older than me. They're in their early 20s, and they're just trying to get through campus life as well. But they treated me, if anybody ever has, they treated me like a true neighbor. They didn't know me. They looked for ways to serve me. They organized study groups on campus. I had one of the guys who was really helping me with my math. He had done all the math, and he was about 4 or 5 years ahead of me. He was doing his PhD at the time. And then at the same time, they were talking about the Bible with me and guiding me through and putting up with my questions from total ignorance, because I literally had zero experience with the Bible. And then on my 18th birthday, they took me out for a lunch at North Garden, just off campus. Right. So, I mean, like stuff like that, like they treated me with real respect, talking to me like a normal human being. And as a total nerd in high school was something I never really experienced. I didn't have a whole lot of friends growing up. And to have these guys treat me with so much love and respect, it was powerful. It was something that changed my life for sure. 4 months later, I became a Christian, and it was, I literally said to them that it was because of them. Right. I cried and said that, it's because you guys, I'm here. Like the love that you guys have shown me, it's just ridiculous. So that was the best example I had of a great neighbor.
Wow. That's beautiful. When you are talking about this group, it really makes me think about like, that was really a community. When you think about that now, like, what did that teach you about community?
Oh, it's huge. Like everybody's busy. Everybody's got stuff to do, and you have to make the time for it. Right? More specifically, you have to do life with people. It's not like you have to make time to do extra stuff. Like, no, you just have to invite people into your life. And the way people did that in a loving, encouraging way, like, that's incredible. And that's one of the hallmarks that the church has had since then.
Wow. That's exactly it. And that's really, I think, what we're trying to communicate out through stories like this and a platform like this, is that caring for others isn't like a task that you need to add to the list, or, a time-consuming thing you need to put into your life. It's just, we're trying to make it a lifestyle, that how we live our lives is that way. And that's beautiful. That's just a perfect story.
And people want to make it complicated, right? They want the big thing. But in fact, like it can be super loving to just invite somebody to go grocery shopping with you.
Absolutely.
Because, hey, come do life with me. You gotta buy groceries just like I do. Let's go do it together.
Yeah, exactly. I had a pastor once also who she shared that when she was a youth pastor, that was one of the main ways she built relationships with the youth students was she had 3 kids. She had to go grocery shopping. So she'd bring along the youth kids around the grocery store and just built relationship that way.
Beautiful.
It's simple. Well, that's a great segue now into kind of getting more into current day. Can you just give us a kind of a quick picture of what your church community looks like?
Yeah, so it's the Winnipeg Church of Christ. We meet at Bronx Park Community Centre on Henderson right now. And it's great. We got about 100 people, and it's incredibly multicultural. We have a really big Nigerian contingent right now, a really significant Chinese contingent. We've had for many years a significant Filipino contingent. So it's amazing to have so many different perspectives. And this is the thing is that some of my best friends are people who are completely different than me, right? That's awesome. I love that. For those of you, if you're listening to the podcast, I'm white, and I grew up with, people who were not entirely unlike myself, but most people who were very much had been in Canada for a while, right? Whether they were white or not. But for me to have some of my best friends today, even to the point my wife is Jamaican. She came up here when she was 12, and we met in the church. And that's the picture of our church. It's a beautiful family who are all different and have tons of differences, and yet love each other.
Wow, that's beautiful. Okay, well, thank you for sharing that about your church. I think a big part of what I'm hearing already is really what we've already started talking about is community. It's people who might not look like each other, may not had a similar background, coming together because they believe in something and they share that in common. And from what I know about your church, it's very community oriented. And so I'd love to hear, how did that begin for you? Like, was there a specific need that came up and that's what started it all? Or just what stirred your heart to kind of get involved that way?
So again, I was invited to become a Christian. Like, I was an atheist growing up, and I was invited to become a Christian by this church. And so I was a 17-year-old guy studying the Bible and an 18-year-old young Christian who had zero knowledge of the Bible. And so, and now I'm 42, or going on 43 next week. So I've been around this church for my entire Christian life. And so I've gotten to see over time. But as I look back, I'm like, it really had to be the culture. What I mean by that is that somebody made the choice. We as a church are going to make this opportunity. We're going to go serve in this particular way. And there's been a number of things we've done over the years. Certainly 15 years ago, it looked very different than it looks now, you can imagine. But somebody made the choice. Let's go serve there. And in the beginning, it was a lot of reminding people, a lot of encouragement, a lot of, hey, make sure you sign up. Hey, make sure you're there. Hey, and it took a long time, but it became the culture. Right? Like it just is the thing now that we do. And actually it's a really interesting dynamic we have right now, because in the last 3-4 years, for whatever reason, immigration policies and things like this, we've actually had a lot of move-ins from other churches in our particular group of churches. And because of that, there's been that picture. We need to communicate the culture, right? The culture in the Winnipeg Church is we serve, we make a difference, right? We get out there and do stuff. And at the beginning, when you're first making that culture, it involves, scheduling the time, making it available, but then as well, inviting people and then having some uncomfortable conversations when it's not happening, right? Or more specifically, I like looking at it this way now, is I want to have a small group of the people that have that buy-in, right? Whatever that group is. And let's get together and serve and make a difference. And let's talk about how great it is. Right? Let's advertise that way and talk about how much it's helping us and how much difference we're making, and share about it, make announcements at church and do all these things and get people on board, right? Make people want to do it, right? But that's the thing. The Winnipeg Church, for literally more than 15 years at this point, has had an amazing culture of service. So it is the expectation. It is the norm in the Winnipeg Church.
My own pastor says something kind of similar to what you're saying. There's always going to be a culture, but it's either happening by default or you're intentional about it. And so that's what it sounds like for you guys. You've made the intentional choice that we are going to be a church that serves Can you share a little bit, and maybe you'll have to think back a ways, but you started talking about some of the, maybe the growing pains of trying to create that culture. How have you really encouraged and sought that buy-in from the congregation to kind of shift that and become that type of culture?
And this is the thing. So you go back 15, 20 years, and I'm not even involved in the leadership, right? I'm just a rank and file trying to, survive. And again, I always felt in the beginning like I didn't have much to contribute because I knew nothing about the Bible. I was just a warm body. But the thing about me with the gift of the love that I was shown when I was reached out to, and the way that the people impacted me, what it made me respond with was gratitude and say, okay, whatever I can do, like, let me do something. And it was in 2007, the pastor at the time asked me and my wife if we could lead the preteen ministry. Some of the oldest kids in the church were preteens at that point, and they were just now coming out for the first time. Like, it was a very young church for a long time. And so I had zero heart for kids. We didn't have any kids at that point. I was completely uninterested in serving kids, but I'm interested in helping. So he asked me, and I said, are you sure? Because I'm not a kid guy. Like, but yeah, okay. If you need a warm body, I'm there. Trust me. Like, right. And that kind of heart is something that I've seen a lot of. Certainly, I'm not unique that way. But that was what started us on our journey, and that was what really propelled us forward. That's the reason I'm here today as a pastor, is because God really worked through that movement, right? So to come back to your question of, what do I do, or what did we do? It was just like, have that grateful heart to say, okay, well, I can't do everything, and I don't have the greatest skills, but what can I do, right? And encourage the congregation to have that same attitude of, well, here's an opportunity. Can you stand and serve food? You have that ability? Yeah, you do. Let's go. Right. And just finding those things where you start off with something that's easy, right? Can you go to Walmart and buy some school supplies? That doesn't take much money. Oh, you don't have any money? Okay. Here's an email to send out to your workplace to invite people to give school supplies for the school. Like, can you do that? Yes, I can do that. Oh, great. Right. And taking where they're at with what they feel like they can do, and then moving on that, right? One of my favorite sayings is it's impossible to turn a stop ship. And so as long as we have a ship that's moving, even if it's moving in the wrong direction, at least we can start turning it and making progress in the right direction.
That's beautiful. Like you said, it's all about your heart posture and your attitude. And I think sometimes people just need someone else to kind of call out what they see in that person. And then that kind of can be light bulb moments of, oh, like, yeah, I can serve food. Like, I can do that. That's doable. And then from there, kind of that unlocking, different skills and gifts and spiritual gifts that maybe they don't even know are there yet. That's really beautiful.
And so many people are insecure. So many people are so nervous about their own skills. Like, everybody around them will say they're good at this. And then I will ask them, hey, you're really good at this. Could you share about that at a service or at a Devo or at something, right? And they, oh, no, I could never do that. I'm not very good. Like, they're so, like, everybody, the people who know they're insecure, they think they're the only ones. Everybody's insecure. And so the challenge is to say, if you're going to be the different one, if you're going to be not that you're not going to be insecure, if you're going to be the one who's actually going to make a difference, all you got to do is say yes. And yeah, it'll be hard. And yeah, you'll probably screw it up. And that's okay. Because guess what? You're not Jesus. That job's taken. And so he's going to do a lot of great things with what you do. It's just like, he does not need you. He wants you. It's very different. Yeah, I compared it because my son started playing baseball, and I compared it to, the feeling I have for him as he's getting up to the plate. If he hits a home run, amazing. If he completely misses, amazing, as long as he tries, right? It's not about the home run in that particular game. It's about the heart of him stepping out in, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to try, and I'm going to put myself out there. That's what God gets excited about.
Exactly. And when you're motivated by love, that's huge. I think about that story you said of those friends you met. They really expressed a love that you were surprised by and that you hadn't experienced before. And that stirred you to take action.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what really we want churches and really just any listener to hear is that you just have to say yes and let God use you in the ways that he wants to. But really like have a burden for people and caring about people, and just say yes, and God will use that.
Yeah. And of course, that's, in one sense, that's horrible advice, because you're going to have a bunch of people who listen to this and start saying yes to everything. And then all of a sudden they'll do everything badly because they don't have any time.
Oh, no.
Right? Of course, there's discernment, right? But especially if you're feeling something in your heart where you're feeling like, you know what, I need to do something different, or I'm not contributing enough, or I want to make a difference somewhere. Like, that's where you got to start saying yes, because what you're doing ain't working. Right? Like, how's that working for you? That kind of comment. Like, if it was working for you, you keep doing it. And I told this to my students all the time when I taught at the university for a long time. And I would say people would come up to me after getting 40% on a midterm, and they'd be like, well, Rob, what do I do? How can I pass the course? And I say, well, what you did resulted in that 40%. If you don't change anything, nothing will change. If you study the same way and do the same kind of things, and as you get ready for the next test, you're going to get about the same grade. So you got to change something. Now, that might be quality, it might be quantity, and we can discuss what that would look like, but that's the point. You have to change something. And if you want to go from a 40 to a 90, well, then you got to change something substantial, because a small tweak here and there ain't going to do that. So that kind of thing. If you want to change something with the way you're serving, and your default is like a no, or your default is I can't do that, or I'm not very good at that, well, then you got to change your default.
That's so practical and so real, so relatable. And so we've really talked about kind of the culture that you have at your church and how you've gotten there. But I'd really love to get into some stories and some specific things. Can you tell a story or a moment that really captures what care looks like in your community?
So there was a couple moments. I mean, certainly we do all the usual things. For instance, providing meals when somebody's sick or has a baby or a death in the family, all those kind of things, right? That's sort of an automatic reaction that until, I was very old when I realized how big a deal that actually was for people, right? It was just something nice you did, right? But, making time to do life together. I mean, when you have people in your life that are actually consciously putting the effort in to get with you, then you feel like you can call them when things go bad, right? You need people like that who you're actually doing life with. So we have these things in our church, but the biggest one I was thinking of, this one guy in the preteens. Actually, he wasn't even in the preteens when we started. He joined the preteens. So he was a very young kid when we started with the preteens. As he moved forward, he came into the preteens and then in the teens, and it was clear he didn't really want to be there, right? It was clear he was not interested. He considered himself an atheist. And as he got older, I actually got with him a little bit on the side, and we had some conversations around faith, but he never bought it, never got into it, right? It was just not for him, right? As far as he was concerned. And that's fine. He had a great experience. His parents were forcing him sometimes to come, and there's pros and cons to that, right? But in the end, as soon as he turned 18, he was out. He left, and he left the province. Like, he was gone. And he was trying to get away. And what happened was a couple of years went by, and not too long, maybe 2 years. And he calls me up one day out of the blue, and he asked me, hey, Rob, could we meet? And we met at McDonald's, and we went and sat down, and he started telling me about how, he's seen a lot of what the world has to offer. He shared some really, graphic stuff. And when he came down to it, he shared about how he looked at himself in the mirror at one point, and he said, is this really all there is? And I said, well, yeah, that's all the world has to offer. Right. And he asked, can you help me become a Christian? And so we studied the Bible and he was super fast. He was ready to go. So it was only about 2.5 weeks, and he became a Christian, and it was spectacular, and it was huge. And that's especially huge when it's one of the kids of the congregants, right? We all pray for them, and it's so important to all of us. And so we need to be normal that our kids are becoming Christians. And that's hard. That requires a ton of time and a ton of effort. And with this kid, it required a lot of patience, right? It required being there and being a friend to him and not turning away from him when he clearly wasn't interested, right? It made it that we were the good household that he could come back to after being the prodigal son, right? That's the thing. And he came back, and to this day, he's doing great. He's married now. They're actually leading the teen ministry now. So God works, right? Like that to me is what care looks like, is that we would get with them and we would spend time with them, knowing that all the hours we spent into preparing devos or whatever for the kid, like it doesn't change anything. They're not going to remember any of these devos, like maybe the one, but almost never they're going to remember them. What matters is the culture we're creating, and that we're actually going to be there with them and show them love, right? That is the care that can change their lives. Because then, like, the world does not compare with that. The world does not have any better things to offer, right? So when they get to see what the world's like, if they have a soft heart, they'll say, you know what? It was so much better in my Father's house, right? And they'll come back. That's the hope. That's the prayer. And when you see that happen, it's just spectacular. It was lots of rejoicing all around.
Wow. When you experience something real, nothing else compares to that. And like you said earlier, God doesn't have to use us, but he wants to.
And I'm convinced that if we had said to ourselves, you know what, if we'd said, oh, you know what, I'm too busy, sorry, I can't get with you, God would do that. And he would let this guy suffer because of me saying no. That's the God we worship. Like, you look in the Bible, he lets innocent people suffer because of other people doing bad things. And it's a thing you got to struggle through as a Christian. You reread some of those hard passages in there. It's a big deal. But I know God would work through it. Maybe you become a Christian at 30, maybe you become a Christian at 50. But this is the thing, is that we have to be the people who say yes. If we don't say yes, like, we're going to miss all the things God's doing.
Wow. Just saying yes. That's it.
And again, it's not like I had a ton of experience or a ton of knowledge to share with this guy. I just loved him. I just shared what I could, right? And that was enough, right? I had, again, no heart for the preteens when he was involved. Didn't matter. I had an opportunity to serve. I took the responsibility. I said, okay, I got to do this. I got to organize these events. And, we'd organize a trip to the corn maze and organize do this and have a Devo this day and run this Sunday service, run this Sunday kids class for them. And right, doing all that stuff. I mean, no one of those things made the difference, but all of those things made the difference. That when you come at it with a heart of just, what can I do to love this guy? What can I do to love these people?
That's right. You showed up consistently and faithfully, and you cared. Wow. As you're sharing that story, thinking about in your role as leading this church, pastoring, throughout that time, has there been people who said yes, like we're talking about, that maybe surprised you? People that maybe you wouldn't have initially thought were wanting to jump in, were wanting to serve, or wanting to care, but did?
The new families that have moved in recently, with a lot of people coming in from different communities, different cultures, different languages. English is not an easy language to learn. I'm just grateful it was my mother tongue, because I would have trouble learning it myself. But to see some of them come in and step into roles of leadership, step into roles of service, where they are interacting with people whose English is their mother tongue, and they're willing to say, no, yeah, it's going to be awkward, and that's okay. We'll talk slow. I got Google Translate if we really need it, right? Like, that's a great heart, right? And I think if I was in a different culture, if I was in a different place, I would find that really tough. Yeah, so that was something that really surprised me in a good way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that resilience that, people who have made these huge life changes already, navigating so much, but then to still say, yeah, I want to serve. There's so much to learn from that.
Mm-hmm. And I want every one of them to feel the same way that I felt those first months, right? That they get love bombed so much, right? That in the end they're like, oh, what can I do to serve? What can I do to help make a difference? Because they just feel so grateful for everything that was done for them, right?
That's right. Is there anything I haven't asked yet that you feel like it's on your heart to share, the Lord's prompted you to share?
What gives you hope right now?
Okay. What gives you hope right now?
Honestly, it's Jesus. And that sounds, trite and all these things. But the thing for me is, recently I've been really realizing how that if the resurrection is as real as I believe it is, then really anything's possible. God really can do anything. And I was challenged with this. So I did, I'm doing my master's right now through McMaster Divinity. And I did a course on Isaiah last year. Then literally about 3 weeks ago, I was in a conference and somebody shared Isaiah 43. And when I heard it, I was shocked. So I've got it here. I could just read it for you real quick. Not the whole chapter or anything, just a small part of it. It says, "This is what the Lord says. He who made a way through the sea, a path through the mighty waters, who drew out the chariots and horses, the army and the reinforcements together, and they lay there never to rise again, extinguished, snuffed out like a wick." Okay, so he's calling their attention. He's asking them to remember the Exodus. Remember what I did for you in the Exodus, okay? And he's getting their brains remembering this. And then he says, "Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland." And that phrase, "way in the wilderness, streams in the wasteland," like it sounds, okay, it sounds very Bible-y and all these things, but to realize what he's saying is, I'm going to do the opposite of what I did before, just to show you I can do anything. In the past, I made a dry ground through the water. Now I'm going to put water in the desert. Like, I can do anything, guys. Like, and so the guy who was preaching this at the conference, he made the point, he said, remember God, forget his methods. Like, there's no rules with God. Like, it just because, like, something that worked in some church 40 years ago does not need to work in your church today. Like, there's lots of principles in the Bible that are certainly timeless, and we should stick by those. But the actual particular methods, if somebody at that time, that happened during the exile and all this brutal people had lost hope. If somebody was waiting for a Red Sea crossing, it was not going to come, right? Instead, what they should have been waiting for was actually being brought back from Babylon, which, by the way, is the opposite direction from the Red Sea. So that's the thing. It's that God really can do anything. And so my story with working with the preteens and then the teens, like, that's a great example of that, because it's just, I had no heart, no interest. And yet God worked through that incredibly. Oh, that was the other thing, was that as I started working with those, I got a chance to go to teen camp. And teen camp's amazing, as many people who are listening, I'm sure, know. It's a great chance for the kids to, connect with people and God and all these things. But here's the thing, is that what happened with, we were such a small church here. We were very isolated. We didn't have a lot of big issues happening. I go to these other camps. I go this big camp, and if we're there, I'm put into these scenarios. These kids, 16, 17, 18, they're confessing stuff. That's a pretty big deal, right? They're feeling convicted. They're saying, you know what, this is not right. I need to stop this, or this is the thing that happened to me and it was brutal and I need some help with that. I've never talked about that before. And I was in a couple scenarios where there was some real stuff that came out, and it shook me to my core. I had a pretty sheltered upbringing. I didn't know what was really out there. And to see that happening, it really hit me that was happening in our churches. And that's just, what? How in the world? But of course, we're just churches full of sinners, just like everybody else. So yeah, duh. But at the time, I'm just completely shocked. And so they have this thing they would do at teen camp, which is a bonfire. And at the bonfire, they give everybody a little 3x5 card, and they ask people to write on it something that you want to change or something you want to get rid of. And then you crumple it up and you throw it in the fire. And counselors are allowed to participate or not. And I would participate most years, but that year I'll never forget, because what I wrote on the card is I wrote the word myself, because I can't live for myself anymore. This is stupid. Like, when this stuff's going on, I can't be just sheltered sitting in my basement playing video games. Like, that's like, there's too much need for me to not work at this. And so crumpled it up, threw it in. And that's a huge reason of why I'm here today, is because God worked through that opportunity to say yes. He brought me to a situation, and this was years after saying yes, brought me to a situation where he gave me a glimpse of the next phase of my life, right? An opportunity to actually make differences in real ways in people's lives.
Well, I've got one more question for you, and I think that's a perfect place to kind of lead into. If someone listening wants to care for their neighbors or for people around them, but doesn't know where to start, what would you tell them?
Yeah. First thing, absolutely, you got to work on yourself, because the whole thing, if you're in an airplane, right, secure your own air mask before securing the person next to you. Like it's so true. But you also can't just say, oh, okay, I'll help out when I'm perfect, right? Because guess what? You're never going to get there, right? So if you're a Christian who's not reading the Bible, for instance, start reading the Bible. If you're a Christian who's not attending church, start. Yes, even pick a sinful church, because they're all sinful, right? Get used to it. Pick a church and just start going. If you're not a Christian, even start working on yourself, because that's humility that'll go with it, right? That's huge, right? To recognize that the ways that you're imperfect and how they actually affect people around you, that could be huge in itself. So start by working on yourself. Then, and very shortly after then, like I'm talking like less than a month, okay, like do something for yourself and then start, is find a way to serve, even something small. And so a couple ideas, you can just use your talents. So for instance, at one point I was looking for a way to serve. I had some time, and I looked online at one of these job board sites, and an inner city a youth drop-in had posted they were looking for math tutors. Okay, sure, I could do that. And so I did that for probably 6-8 months. And my son at that point was old enough that he was actually able to come with me. And so I brought him, right? And he actually did some math, and he hung out at the center while we were there. It was great. And the point of doing that is not the thing itself, because it's probably, whatever you pick, it's probably not going to be the thing that you do forever. But again, like I said earlier, it's hard to turn a stopped ship. And so when you start going, you can actually make a difference. And so at that point, third then is just be open to seeing what God will do with that, right? Watch who you interact with. Who are the people you're meeting? What are they like? What are their priorities? And watch for people who have a heart or have lives like you want, and then hang out with them, right? There's that old saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? So improve your circle, right? Get with people who you want to be like and bring them into your life as much as possible. And if somebody says no, well, then I guess they weren't the person. Find somebody else, right? And so it's being open to watch for what God is doing in your life and how he's going to take you to move forward. Because again, he is not done with you. If you are breathing, you can do something. And you have no idea how big or small it will be until you actually get started.
That is so good. So good. Pastor Rob, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing these stories, these practical steps, and just your heart and part of your own journey. I've been blessed and moved tonight just getting to chat with you. So thank you. This is all a reminder that ordinary care can really have extraordinary impact.
The stories we share here remind us that care doesn't have to be perfect to be powerful. It just has to be present. Neighbourly is an initiative of CareImpact, a Canadian charity equipping churches, agencies, and communities with tech and training to care better together. Visit careimpact.ca. Or to find out more about the podcast, sponsorships, being a guest, or just dropping us a line, visit neighbourlypodcast.ca. We'd love to hear from you. Check the show notes for the link. Or hop on our CareImpact podcast group on Facebook to join our podcast community. I'm Johan. Thanks for listening, and keep being the kind of neighbor someone will never forget. In a good way.